David, we have a bit to talk about. It'll not be too long though, but just to spell it out to the fans and all the people watching this, explain what the situation is about the new contract compared to your old contract, etc. Give me some dates.
I suppose I'll put it in context, Jack, in that Brian and I first joined Ballymena in March 2016. And a very basic principle, which was in the interests of all parties, was that Brian and I would only be at Ballymena for as long as we felt that we were needed or wanted, and as long as the club thought we were needed and wanted. Mm-hmm. So that it had to be mutually beneficial, and that was the basis of how we went forward. Fast forward the story to this most recent extension. We had a contract which went through to the end of next season. That was 2023. Mm-hmm. But the club, through Mr. John Taggart and Mr. Don Sterling, very kindly offered an extension of that contract. There wasn't, to tell you the truth, an awful lot of time taken over it, because when you consider what I said at the beginning, we would be here for as long as we felt we were needed and wanted, and that was the case. And so the contract was signed in a pretty straightforward manner.
How pleased are you by this?
I'm delighted, Jack. Absolutely delighted. When Brian and I stepped down from Linfield in 2014, I had no immediate plans, to go back into football. In fact, while I stepped down from Linfield, I made a point of saying I hadn't stepped, down from football. But my journey was that, I started working with a Sunday Life and did additional work with the BBC. Brian went down to Glenavon and did some coaching work there. We always had an understanding that should we go back into management, we would do that together. And over the piece, we have always counted it a privilege, to be managing and coaching at Ballymena United. Over the 6 years we've been here, I felt we've done pretty well in terms of what we've achieved with the help and support of the board and players and supporters.
And European money.
We've, as I say, we could go through all of that. But that's been a united success, Jack. It has taken everyone, to muck in together. During our tenure thus far, the landscape in local football has changed dramatically. And that has added a greater challenge to Brian and myself, but something which we have embraced and something which we're both enjoying.
After that 2-year sabbatical, you were out of the game, you were still attached doing media work and so on, but what sold Ballymena to you? What attracted you to this project?
Very simply, in the first instance, how it was presented to me by Mr. John Taggart, the chairman, and Mr. Don Sterling, vice chair. I remember distinctly meeting with them in Coors Corner after being very clear that there was a vacancy. And I was told that was the case, that Glenn, who was managed at the manager at the time, Glenn Ferguson, had left the club because that was of immense importance.
Of course.
With regards to that. And afterwards we sat and chatted and yarned about, I suppose, our experience, our being Brian and myself, our experience at Linfield and how things worked there, how we would like to see things work at Ballymena. And it was the fact that we were entrusted with so many things. We obviously are accountable to the board, accountable to the supporters, of course we are. But we wanted a particular way of working, and we were allowed that, and it continued to be allowed that. And as I say, there's no doubt of the accountability which Brian and I have, but we're allowed to get on with the job, Jack, in terms of the way that it is of benefit to Ballymena United.
After working with the mighty Linfield and all you achieved there and all those League and Cup doubles and 30 plus 30 trophies, Ballymena being a country club, they'd never won the league. Was it difficult for you to adapt from that bigger club to the smaller club?
Not in any way, Jack, because we thought long and hard before, taking up our position here at Ballymena United. There had been interest from other parties who had made approaches in various ways, but none of them ever really seemed the right thing to do. And that was very important to Brian and myself in how we were going forward. We knew we were coming to, a very well-established provincial club who had, a great reputation for being a good club with good people, with a sizable support. But probably one of the things that attracted Brian and myself was the fact that United hadn't won the league in their history. And that was a challenge which we thought,
that's the project.
We wouldn't mind having a crack at that. Now, we've come close in that we've got to second during our time.
First time in 40 odd years.
Yeah, and but the landscape has changed massively. So the size of the challenge is now bigger. But I would say that it still very much is an ambition for Brian and myself. Can we do it? Now, the odds are stacked against us. But as I've said before, this is about, okay, let's look at the challenge. Let's see how we can go forward. Let's see how we can be better. Let's see how we can improve. And can we get a crack? And certainly that would still be very much the ambition.
And this season, of course, Cliftonville are battling against the odds, aren't they?
Cliftonville,
as a part-time club.
They've done tremendously well. Absolutely fabulously well when you think what Patrick has done. And that, and prior to them, Coleraine, and prior to them, ourselves, we've been up and around there. So there are periods when other clubs can make that progress, so to speak. There's no doubt it is more difficult.
It's been a difficult sort of season for you with injuries and one thing and another.
Start of the season was challenging, Jack, in that we were, and we don't make a point of talking about injuries or unavailability, but if I give you one example, in that David Parkhouse, who we were delighted to sign.
He's done well.
Well, since coming back from injury, he's done very well. Of that, there's no doubt. But literally, our first game away to Warren Point Town, and David gets a horrific injury. Now, that was replicated with Josh Kelly then breaking a bone in his foot, and I can go on to him blue in the face. So we had a difficult start. Of that, there was no doubt, and I know that at one stage I was on record as saying it was probably the most challenging in all of our time. But that was simply because we wanted to do well, we wanted to win, and being beaten doesn't lie easily. Not in any way, shape or form. Obviously the expectations you alluded to being at Linfield and coming to Ballymena. But the expectations of Brian McLaughlin and David Jeffrey don't change. And so that was a challenging time. But we stuck together in that, in terms of the club as a whole, board, supporters and players and staff, we stuck together, and we remained united. And out of all of those difficulties, when we started to get players back and getting them back fit and well and competing for places, then there's been a fair upturn. And I don't do statistics per se, but I think there's been, where we're at now, we're only 2 points maybe less off than we were last year. And when you think of the number of games that we did so tremendously well in last year, so it is so tight in terms of the league. And the start of the season was difficult and it was tough. But no one walked away, Jack.
Now that you're a pensioner, Sorry, I think that was the wrong word. Now that you've retired from the day job, I can see you putting a lot more effort and attention towards United.
Social work and being a senior social worker down in Larne was, very much a vocational calling, and I thoroughly enjoyed that work. Maybe it's about a year and a bit ago, spoke to mother and father about this next stage of your life, so to speak. God willing, I will be 60 in October of this year. But last year, in just chatting and yarning, about what the future may or may not hold, we talked about work and talked about combining the two jobs, which ostensibly are two full-time jobs, and I've been doing that for the guts of 30 odd years. And my mother was very clear and said, David, God is not a God of confusion. You'll be very clear as to when it is the right time to cease social work. And it was in August of last year that time came, and I thought, right, no other plans made in terms of what the next step would be, but I thought no time to come to bring things to an end. And I worked it out that if I finished on the 31st of March 2022, that would give me 28 years of service to the Northern Health and Social Care Trust to the day. And I like to be symmetrical. My date of birth is the 20th of October. So I thought that all made sense in my head.
I thought you didn't do stat.
Well, that's not really a stat. That's just trying to put things in order. But the fast forward, part of the reason was I wanted time to have time. And I wanted to be able to free up myself so that if there was other things that I felt I could do which would benefit Ballymena United, then I would be free to do that. And that's as simple as that, Jack. Now, there's other things that, will come my way, but it's very much taking a day at a time. My Father in Heaven's in control of my destiny. That's where I'm very, very clear about, in terms of the new contract. That didn't happen by accident. That's part and parcel of the plan for my life. In terms of my rationale, I said about Brian and I being here for as long as we were needed and wanted. A big part of that is about loyalty. And it's about, the club showed a loyalty, to Brian and myself, and we in turn very much showed that, hopefully have established of our loyalty to Ballymena United. And in terms of having more time, to do more for the club, if that is possible, then that will be the case.
Well, that's good news. And just finally, David, the season's coming to an end, but you could still win the Irish Cup and you could still book your place in the European qualifiers.
The blessing for us, Jack, is that we have a lot to play for. It could happen and go over so quickly. 2 defeats. We've got Glenavon on Saturday, which is a big, big game.
It's a cup final.
Massive, massive game. And we're focusing on that and on nothing else because, there's been lots of talk about the semi-final, if and when it's going to be played, and I like to deal in certainties. So what we do know is that we play Glenavon this Saturday away at Mourneview, and we put all our focus and concentration on that. And after that, we'll see where things takes us.
David, congratulations on the new deal, and for all of the supporters like myself, go and get that first league title for the club.
Thank you, Jack.
That's your main target.
That's the ambition. That's the target. People will probably think I'm off my rocker. That's fine. You think all you want. In life, you've got to set yourself a target. In life, you've got to, go forward and upwards. I may well fall flat on my face, but it'll not be for the want of trying and continuing to give of my very best to Ballymena United and trying to make them, and when I mean them, I'm talking about us, players, staff, supporters, and everybody the best that we can possibly be.
Good luck. Good to see you again, David.
Thanks, Jack.